Affect Autism, 10 years of providing free supportive content for your DIR journey.
All of Affect Autism's podcasts are produced and edited by Daria Brown. Please note that the views expressed during all episodes are solely those of the individuals involved, do not constitute educational or medical advice, and do not necessarily reflect the views of Affect Autism, Daria Brown, nor ICDL and associated parties. Listeners should consult with professionals familiar with their individual circumstances for specific support.
Parent Perspectives, a podcast from Affect Autism. Hello, Floor Timers! This edition of Parent Perspectives features returning guest Michele Abraham-Montgomery, who specializes in family services, autism resources and advocacy, peer family coaching, youth and young adult programming, peer best practices, modeling play therapy techniques, and IEP reviews and preparations in Philadelphia. Her and her son Khylil created Spectrum Success 911, a nonprofit organization, which we podcasted about before. I'll put links to that in the show notes, connecting families with programming, community resources, and organizations of support. It's nice to have you back, Chele.
Yes, it's wonderful to be back. Thank you for having me.
We are talking about siblings. In our last podcast, Chele, who is a self-professed glam mom of two wonderful children, including a little boy on the spectrum, is witnessing some interesting similarities between her children growing up and now her grandchildren growing up. And we thought this would be a great topic to bring up. So where would you like to start?
Wow. So I like to refer to my journey now as the embracing part of it. We say that first you reject it, then you accept it, and hopefully you embrace it. And I am super excited to be in the embracing form of my journey. I know we were talking a little bit earlier this week, and I was just so excited about being able to share about the sibling portion of things because I remember when my son and my daughter were growing up and some of the behaviors that they exhibited at that time. And we even talked a little bit about my daughter, her role being reversed because she is the youngest, but because of Khylil's diagnosis, I pretty much had put her in the oldest seat because I would always have her, do this and do that and make sure he's okay role. And now that my grandson has been diagnosed with autism and he is 4, and my granddaughter, who is 1, and she's the first girl in our family in 26 years. So we are super excited to have her and just being able to see her mimic her mother's behaviors with her brother. And I asked my daughter, do you have like deja vu moments when you watch your children? And she said, not yet, but I am definitely experiencing the deja vu.
It must be really surreal.
Yes.
So tell us about some of the comparisons that you see between the grandkids and your own children when they were younger.
Well, the sibling rivalry, of course, is definitely there. I know that my daughter, she was definitely parentified, and she definitely stepped into not only the older sibling role, but the mother role with her brother. And I see that with my granddaughter, and she mimics my daughter because she'll say, DJ, DJ, no, 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 I. And my daughter says, hey, wait a minute, don't talk to my son like that. You're not his mother. And she busts out laughing and running. And just to see her stepping into that authority role with her brother, trying to make sure that he is okay, it just makes my heart smile and is comical at the same time.
At age one, it must be just such a hoot to watch.
Yes, and I know so my grandson, he also will elope if you don't keep an eye on him. And I remember that they were at my program, and DJ was on his way out the door. And when Zari saw him on his way, she ran and jumped on his back, and it was hilarious. But she was like, "Oh no, I'm not letting my brother go anywhere." So just seeing her, take control and making sure that he is safe, just like her mother did with her brother, she definitely has an influence on him, and vice versa. He has that influence on her because she wants to protect him, and she wants to make sure that he's doing the things that he should be doing. So she will speak when she needs to, or get your attention when she needs to, especially if it's to protect or to make sure that someone is paying attention to her brother. I have a picture here of them when they were younger. Can you see?
Aw.
And just the look that she is giving him. And even though DJ's not making contact, but she's like leaned up against him, and he's embracing her touch and allowing her to be in his space. And I was just like, this is amazing, and I'm so happy that I was able to capture that engagement between the two of them. He will allow her to, engage with him, or she'll try to hug him and different things. And he'll allow it. I think one time he like kissed her on the head, and so we were really surprised about that. But then they also have their, moments where they get back at each other, because I know that he was asleep and she took and hit him in the head with the phone, and then when she was asleep, he went over and head butted her. So they take turns getting each other, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess he just got her back. So, but it's really funny.
So unsurprising to us, but possibly surprising to other people that like to stigmatize autism, they're typical siblings.
Yes, yes. And so, and sometimes they'll say, oh, well, they do this because they have autism. But I think when it comes down to that sibling bond, the autism is definitely not a element in that. It's just that we're brother and sisters, and those are the things that it does.
And Khylil and your daughter are still quite close, aren't they, as adults?
Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. I know when I don't know where Khalil is, and I'll say, well, China, where's Khalil? And she'll say, wait a minute, let me look on her GPS, or however she tracks him, the dragon. She'd be like, oh, yeah, he's home. And I'm like, okay. So definitely.
It's, I mean, I've known you for I don't know how many years now, maybe a handful of years since we first met. And I've met you in person twice now. And just to see what an amazing young man Khylil has become is just incredible, and gives, I hope, gives parents hope. And you talked about this in the past podcasts we've done, all of the gloom and doom news that you were provided with, not to have hope for his future, and to see that he's an employed, brilliant young man doing so many different creative things, and just very articulate. And we met up for dinner in Philadelphia, and him chatting with my son and hanging out. He showed up a little bit before you, so we had a chance to just interact with him, and it was just really nice to see that development happens. And so, do you notice that your daughter had any kind of doom and gloom, or was she sort of immunized to that because of her experience with her brother?
No, absolutely not. I think that she always saw him in his authentic, form, and that she encouraged him to be his authentic self. Even now at 31, I see Khalil is changing again. And I love his, positivity about, being his authentic self. And sometimes, as parents that have children that are living on the spectrum, or that are unique and have diagnoses, um, we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And his authenticity, right? And it's just like amazing. And his sister really is like his greatest cheerleader, his first responder. And she's always there just supporting him. Even when sometimes I might have that, like, oh no, look, but the sister is always there, with the confident smile, cheering them on, and so I love their relationship and I love the support that she gives them.
And I'll also link back to the Autistic Viewpoints podcast where Khylil was our first guest with me and Terrell Burgess. And they both spoke about how they are very close with their younger sisters. So it's just such a nice relationship to have. And I imagine having the support of his sister really helped with that confidence as well.
I definitely believe that because whenever I'm describing Khalil, I always say, like my son is on his own planet. And it's like, well, what does that mean? And it's like, that's his happy place. And he, is like that horse with the blinders on. He like keeps the outside noise outside, and he doesn't let other things distract him. And I love that, about him. And it's a lot of times I wish, sometimes that I had the confidence that, he has about different things. And so, like I'm always trying to make sure that I'm representing or that I am, saying the right thing. And my, motto is you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Whereas I think Khalil is just like, up, if it didn't go the way it was supposed to, just keep rolling with it. It'll end up the way it's supposed to be. And, it's a little risque for me, but I love that, he's comfortable with that. Khalil went from non-speaking to now he's can't stop speaking. And so, and I see even with my grandson who, stayed kind of to himself, and whereas my granddaughter will make him come out of that place at whatever cost necessary, but he will definitely engage with her. And so it's hard for him to be isolated when his little sister is in his midst.
So I know you recently finished your Awesome Ambassadors program and you have young adults and maybe older adolescents in the class. Do you have any interaction with their siblings or
Absolutely. So I know in our summer program that the siblings are encouraged to participate, and sometimes we even had the siblings come in as guests. And it's very interesting to see them engage because I know, like, during financial literacy, and I'll say to them, well, you have to share your finances and your monies with the sibling. And it's like to see, will they give them half, will they give them more, will they give them a little bit? And then to watch and see how that engagement goes is really funny. And then we have some who are older and their younger sibling will come in, and we see them more as a protector type of role. And so it varies, especially if they're much older, like 10 years or more, then you'll see them step into a protector type of role. But if it's like close, maybe 3 or 4 years, and depending on the level that they're on in a diagnosis, that the sibling will know, should I be more or can I just stay, as a younger sibling? So they can definitely tune in to their sibling and like know what that sibling needs and when to push in or when to pull back in the engagement. And that's really awesome to watch, especially with a 1 year old, or depending on the age difference, to see how it varies.
I imagine that you notice them sort of come out of their shell, your ambassadors that have their siblings with them because maybe in public environments they're used to being a school or something where they have to mask to survive, but around their siblings, I imagine they're more being themselves and the siblings understand them so they feel safer together. Like, do you see that kind of dynamic shift when the siblings come in?
I absolutely do. Even seeing them engaging more and more verbalization, like to say, what do you want at lunchtime? Or do you want this? Or do you want that? So it's very interesting to see how the roles play out and who, sometimes they take turns with who's the dominant sibling, and then sometimes there's competition with who's the dominant sibling. And so, yeah, it's very, very interesting to watch.
It's such an interesting dynamic for me because I only have one son, so I don't see the sibling stuff happening. And then, even just from watching Love on the Spectrum, you see the way the siblings interact with their autistic sibling and how protective they are and how much they want to treat them like part of the family, like everybody else, but at the same time, being extra protective of their vulnerabilities.
I'm excited, watching and embracing this journey with my grandchildren. Even watching them, like Khylil now is babysitting, something that I didn't think he would ever do. But he will pick the niece and nephews up from the daycare and from school, and he'll transport them from one place to the other. And I mean, he's a really good uncle. And so, yeah, I was like, wow.
I wonder if your grandson picks up on a different vibe with his uncle, like, yeah, you're like me, or if
So that's interesting that you said that, because we do have one of our ambassadors who was not speaking as well, and DJ did like connect with him, and we were able to video it and like show it to the ambassador's mom, who thought, because he's like a really big guy, and she was like, no, I never really let him engage with any of the children or anything because I was scared that he might hurt them. And so he didn't pick DJ up, but he did let DJ climb on his lap, and he gave him a high five. And, like they really connected. And I wonder if it was because DJ kind of could sense that he, was not speaking like he is, and the correlation of, their autism. So I think that they do it. And I always say that they have a sixth sense, and they know like who cares, and, or who wants to really, be engaged with them. And I definitely think that they pick up on those type of things.
again, a lot of the stigma out there, Khylil, you mentioned, is picking his niece and nephew up at daycare. Yes, he has a driver's license. Yes, autistic people can drive cars.
He's
This,
also a homeowner too.
yeah,
Yeah, he has not asked me to for support or help, and I was like shocked. He makes sure he pays all of the bills, the property taxes, and and again, that also falls in line with the routine. You have to pay your
yeah.
bills every month, and you have to do shopping every month. So I think that that was something that he was really good at, because he does well with routines, and so I'm not surprised that he was able to be successful with the home ownership responsibilities.
Yet again, at your conference presentation at ICDL, well, a year and a half ago, March, you really showed that history. And, on Instagram, I'm seeing a lot of people talking about this profound autism, severe autism. And then there's the people that would have been formerly called Asperger's, who are now called autistic now as well. And Khylil was not necessarily one of those kids when he was little. He was more towards the profound severe end as a
Mhm.
young child, and yet has a regular family life with his sister, with his nephew, with his niece, with his mom, with his siblings, with his cousins, with his aunts, with his uncles, has a
Friends.
full-time job, is a homeowner, is so I mean, I the reason I'm just pointing that out over and over is because if anybody's listening and they always think, oh, well, that's not going to be my kid, um, it may not be. There are a lot of people who have severe and prolonged disabilities, but there's always some way to connect with each person. And in your work, you see such a variety of support needs of autistics. And can you just speak to a little bit about that? And if you want to bring in the sibling aspect too, like you've been in this field long enough to have seen a lot of kids grow. And in your experience, like, how do you see it play out? Because there might be a lot of parents of young children listening, and it's really scary not knowing the future and not knowing if your child ever will be independent like Khylil. And of course, when I say independent, we all depend on other people.
They told me Khylil would never walk, never talk, never be productive in society, and that I should institutionalize him. And I just love that Khalil's journey allows us to be able to bring hope to families that have also had these type of remarks from doctors and professionals that would say these things because their child has differences in diagnoses. And so, but with the correct support and a support system, that the narrative can change, right? And so when I'm coaching parents who are newly diagnosed, just being able to help them, like, just a lot of times they will hold your neck, or they'll put their hand on your chest, and what they're doing is feeling the vibrations of your voice, and it's soothing to them. A lot of times, being able to share that, and the parents have those aha moments, like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I didn't know what was going on. Like, why are you always grabbing my neck or something like that?
And, for those who will remain non speaking, they might have apraxia of speech or whatever,
Mhm.
providing that support so that they can eventually learn how to communicate using AAC devices of some kind. Or we're seeing all these spellers now on Instagram where, a person has to work with them to get the body movement so that they can get to the place where they can spell, but then they're independently typing and spelling, and you realize, oh, that kid's been in there all along absorbing everything, but their body just doesn't cooperate with what they want to do. And I think what you're saying is presume competence always with your kids. And we've talked about this in the past podcasts we've done, Shell, but you're a natural floor timer. So, you're following your children's lead. You're having the back and forth with them. You're, making it fun and using your affect and expression and the singing, and, finding out what lights them up, as we've talked about in the past podcast. So yeah, it's really important, I think, for parents to see that. But it's also hard for parents to hear when they're in the thick of aggression and behavior, and a child who's just feeling so misunderstood and frustrated with not being able to communicate that there doesn't seem to be any way out. And when you feel like someone's so vulnerable that you want to protect them from that harsh world that's out there that can bully them and put them down, and our kids are so sensitive to a lot of things. Every situation's different, of course, but I love having all the different examples so that people see, like, you know, this our future isn't written in stone. It's wide open, and
Mhm.
here's a bunch of examples of other lived experiences, and just got to keep that hope alive that you can support your child through those struggles. Because, and again, I'm talking about the families that are really struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely agree with that. And in those type of situations, you want to find out who is that support person for your kiddo who is on the spectrum. It may be even a friend or a staff member at the school, but you definitely want to seek out who is able to connect with your child and watch and see what are they doing, how are they connecting, and you can possibly mimic those behaviors, or the things that they are doing, and see if that can help. But again, they just have this sixth sense, and they just know who is, their support person, who is on their team, and who is there to, be there to help them to win. And that's what we definitely want to be able to show that, you are a team player, that you are there. And again, validation is so important. Even if, they might be doing something that you might consider it to be negative, say, okay, listen, that might not be the best thing to do. Or, help me to understand why you are doing it, opposed to saying that's not right or that's bad. Don't do that. Find out why are they doing that.
I like that point that you made.
Well, that's like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding. Five things you can see, four things you can hear, three things you can smell, two things you can touch. Just using those things, the senses, to help them to ground. Helping to self-regulate.
Providing those experiences at home, like, okay, let's do water play at home, let's, get slime, let's do all these different things at home for them to explore, for sure. And I have podcasts I'll link back to with an OT about all the sensory experiences that you
Mm-hmm.
can provide. But it's so hard to help them distinguish what's okay in the house versus out there. So, water, great, I'm drinking it. But then you go out to a splash pad or a fountain. No, you can't drink that. But then you can drink from this drinking fountain, but then you can't drink that water in the pool. It's like, must be so confusing when, it seems to come naturally to most of us, but maybe we all had to learn that. I don't know. So, I know that, parents go through all these kinds of struggles all the time. And
And that's a great point that you made, but again, practicing at home and doing a can and can't list and going through that at home first. So that way when you go out, the first thing will come in mind, like, oh yeah, I can't touch that. And another exercise that we do is because our neurodivergent kiddos don't have a filter.
yeah.
So there's a game that we play, say it or swallow it, because everything that you want to say should not always be said, So, I'll give an example. Somebody has yellow teeth. Do you say, why are your teeth yellow? Or is that something you can swallow? And so a lot of them, oh, I have to say it. I have to say it. But, practicing those things.
I'm
And
guilty of that kind of thing, Shell. Like, even as an adult, it's, and then
oh
you
my
just
goodness.
feel like, what have I done?
Right. Because a lot of times they process out loud, and not that they're trying to say things to hurt your feelings, but it came to their mind and it comes out their mouth. And so they're processing it, and then sometimes after they say it, it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. So that's a great game to play with our kiddos, to say it or swallow it, to help them to be able to monitor things that, they might not should say. So,
And
yeah.
also just things like scratching your crotch in public, or, screaming that you have an itch in certain places, like these kinds of things when you say no filter. um it so many different ages and stages and ages of things that you come across with your children, that socializing them to understand etiquette and things like that. It's,
Mhm.
I imagine that the siblings maybe are more the ones that are like, no, 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 don't do that, if they're hanging out together.
Mhm. Mhm. I believe that, and I believe that they just have this really unique bond where they have this nonverbal communication as siblings that sometimes we don't have as parents. And even if with siblings, they might appear to fight and different things, and it may appear to be negative to you. I think that, what would be most important is to help them to express love. So that in spite of if they do have those sibling rivalries, that they can still learn how to love and how to have that, bond with each other, just keep impressing on having them to say how much they love and appreciate each other in spite of, because we all have differences and we don't always get along, but, and teach them to agree to disagree, respect each other. Hey, I don't like what you said. Well, I don't like what you did. But, tell me, why did you do it? And then like, okay, yeah, I understand why you did it, but yeah, I didn't like that. That didn't help me or make me feel good. So again, validating the behavior, but then, expressing that that wasn't nice or kind, or you didn't like that. And those type of things, I think, really will help them to have a closer relationship and, understanding for each other and grow the bond that they have.
I know that in some of the classes I've taken from the Neufeld Institute, Dr. Gordon Neufeld's a developmental psychologist in Vancouver. He says to say to the kids, if I'm just giving a stereotypical example, like the brother hits his sister or something, say, "Oh, do you have hugs for your sister too? You have hits for your sister, but do you also have hugs?" Just to get them to start to think, because until they're whatever age, it differs, and especially in autistic kids, it might come a little later when your prefrontal cortex comes online and you actually can
Absolutely.
think about something as opposed to just instinctually doing it. Just planting those
Right.
seeds of like, do you have some hugs in there too?
Right. So
And
teaching them to be more proactive than reactive.
yeah, yeah, which comes with maturity, but it certainly doesn't hurt to plant those seeds, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Well, I always enjoy chatting with you, Shell, and
Yes, always.
hopefully we'll see you in March if you come to the conference in New Jersey again. I'd love to run into you again. And thank you so
Yes.
much for sharing all of your observations and experiences about siblings. And I will put links in the show notes to the past podcasts and other things we talked about. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. This episode of We Chose Play was made possible with the generous financial support of Affect Autism's members and of the International Council on Development and Learning, ICDL.com. If you liked this episode, please share it with someone, like and subscribe, sign up for the newsletter at affectautism.com, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Instagram. Find out more at affectautism.com.